Welcome back to day 2 of Wonders, Unit 1, Week 1. How do friends depend on each other? Standard we are working on this week is RI.1.1. Ask and answer such questions as who, what, where, when, why, and how to demonstrate understanding of key details in a text. What does that mean for you? That means you will be able to use questions to show your understanding of key details in a text. We're going to start off today with some vocabulary words. Our first word is actions. Actions are something that a person does. The girl's actions helped her team with the soccer game. Afraid. When you are afraid, you are scared of something. Our dog is afraid of thunder. Depend. When you depend on someone, you need or count on them. Nick depends on his dad to help him learn how to ride a bike. Nervously. When I do something nervously, I do it in a scared or worried way. Maya waited nervously for her swim race to begin. Peered. If you peered at something, you looked at it closely. The cat peered through the hole in the barn. Perfectly. When something is perfectly wonderful, it is wonderful in the best possible way. The orange is perfectly round. Rescue. When you rescue something, you save it from danger. We watched the boy rescue the cat from the tree. Secret. A secret is something that is not known by many people. Mandy whispered a secret to me. Now we're going to read a story. Little Flap Learns to Fly. As you listen to this story, be sure to ask yourself questions about the key details and to look for the vocabulary words that we just reviewed. Our essential question, how do friends depend on each other? Read how Little Flap depends on his friends. Little Flap was happy living in his nest. His friends, Fluff and Tuff, lived in the nest next to him. Every morning they sang songs together. Their parents brought them worms to eat. One day, Fluff asked, "Can we get our own worms?" Tuff said, "We can if we learn to fly." Fluff said, "Yes, let's learn to fly." Little Flap peered over the edge of his nest. It was very high up. When he looked down, the ground seemed very far away. He felt scared. He was too afraid to tell his friends about his fear, so he kept his feelings a secret. Fluff said, "Let's practice flapping our wings. It will make them strong. Watch." Tuff and Little Flap watched Fluff. Then they copied her actions. Soon it was time to fly. Little Flap could no longer keep his feelings a secret. He asked, "Will I fall? I don't want to get hurt." Tuff said, "You can depend on Fluff and me. We're your friends." Fluff said, "I have an idea. We will go first and show you how. Then you can try. If you fall, Tuff and I will rescue you." Tuff said, "Yes, we can save you." Tuff and Fluff jumped out of the nest. They flew. Flap looked down nervously. He still felt uneasy, but he felt braver with his friends. "Okay," he said, "let's try." The three friends stood together on the branch. They counted 1, 2, 3. Then they flapped their wings fast and jumped. Little Flap lifted into the air. "You're flying just right," said Fluff. "You're flying perfectly," said Tuff. All three birds landed in a soft patch of green grass. Little Flap said, "Now I know I can always depend on you, Fluff and Tuff. You are my friends." Then he found a big, juicy worm and shared it with his friend. Now Little Flap likes flying. Did you remember to ask yourself questions about the key details? Let's go back and reread page 22. In the first paragraph, it says, "Little Flap was happy living in his nest. His friends, Fluff and Tuff, lived in the nest next to him. Every morning they sang songs together. Their parents brought them worms to eat." Did you ask yourself some questions? Where are the birds in the story? Well, the sentence says that they lived in a nest. And I can look at the picture and I can see the nest is in a tree on a branch. So, what details in the story tell you that the birds are friends? I know the birds are friends because the page says that Little Flap's friends, Fluff and Tuff, live in the nest next to him. It also says that the birds sang songs together, and that is something that friends would do. So if I were to answer the question, what details in the story tell me that the birds are friends, I would want to make sure that I say something from the story. That's called citing the text. I would cite the text by saying, on the page, it says Little Flap's friends, Fluff and Tuff. Now let's reread the rest of this page. One day, Fluff asked, "Can we get our own worms?" Tuff said, "We can if we learn to fly." Fluff said, "Yes, let's learn to fly." Look at the pictures. What do you notice about these birds? Are they big or little? Well, I think the birds must be babies because they cannot fly. Why does Fluff want to learn to fly? We can cite evidence by saying, on page 23, it says, Fluff wants to know, or Fluff asked, "Can we get our own worms?" And Tuff said we can if we learn to fly. So that's how I could cite text evidence to show why Fluff wants to learn to fly. Yesterday I told you we would revisit The New Kid, our wonderful, wonderful story about Lucy and Jade.
The New Kid. Have you ever had a friend help you when you felt lonely, sad, or scared? I was sitting on my porch with George when the girl next door stopped by. George is my parrot. I was trying to teach George to repeat the word hippopotamus. "Hi," the girl said. "I'm Jade, and I live next door. I hear you're new in town." "I'm Lucy," George squawked. "No, I'm Lucy," I told her. "This is George, my parrot." I couldn't think of anything else to say, so I just sat there staring at George with my cheeks red hot and my hands tightly clasped. I was very shy about meeting new people and very nervous about starting a new school tomorrow. I must have looked really worried because Jade smiled kindly and said, "My mom says we're in the same class. Isn't that great? Everybody's really nice. You'll like our teacher, Mr. Walker, too. He's nice and does great projects with his class."
I can put the information from this story and these illustrations into my own words and tell what's happened so far. So far I've read that Lucy was new in town. Jade, who is Lucy's neighbor, came over to visit. Jade told Lucy that they were going to be in the same class. When you are retelling a story, you should always tell the important details in the beginning, middle, and end in the correct order. It would sound really funny if I started out with Lucy wanted to be in the same class with Jade, and then followed that with Jade, who's Lucy's neighbor, came to visit, because that's not the order that it was in.
"I'm Lucy," George squawked loudly again, opening his hooked beak wide as he ruffled his feathers and flapped his wings rapidly. George likes to repeat whatever I say, which can be a problem. "George is a hippopotamus," George squawked. "This is George," I repeated. "I taught him that." Then George decided to quietly eat an apple slice. That was a huge relief, because George can be extremely embarrassing. "Peace at last," I said, as Jade and I laughed about George's squawking. Suddenly, Jade's mom called to her. "I need to go," Jade said. "I'll save you a seat tomorrow if I get to school first," Jade shouted as she ran home. "Promise?" I shouted back. "Absolutely," Jade said. Then she ran through the grass and across the small garden, turning and waving as her mom called again. I was still nervous about school, but I thought it might not be as bad as I first thought.
Remember, when you are retelling a story, you don't have to include everything that's in the story, only the key details. You can find those key details by asking yourself questions. Who is this story about? Well, we know that this story is about two friends, Lucy and Jade. What is happening in the story? Jade has come to visit Lucy and tell her that they're going to be in class together. Where is this story taking place? Right now, the story is happening at Lucy's house on her porch, and I can see that they're on their porch by looking at the picture. Why is this story taking place? Well, Lucy is new in town and she's nervous about starting a new school. Jade is her neighbor and in the same class, and she is coming over to help make Lucy feel better. So when you want to retell, you make sure you keep those key details. Jade and Lucy are sitting on the front porch listening to Lucy's pet parrot, George. Lucy's telling Jade that George has learned these words from her. Jade's mom calls and she goes to leave and tells Lucy that she'll save her a seat in class. Lucy begins to feel like maybe the first day of school won't be so bad. We're going to stop there and we're going to continue on next with a phonics activity, blending words. Here I see the word K-I-D. When I want to blend this word, I say each sound by itself. K,
I,
I,
D,
D. Then I blend those sounds together.
Kid,
And finally, I say the word.
Kid.
Here I see the word R-A-P. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say each sound.
A,
Then I'm going to blend the sounds together.
Rap,
And finally say the word.
Rap.
Here I see the word S-I-P.
S, I,
Blending the sounds
Sip,
and then saying the word.
Sip.
Here I see the letters B-A-G.
A,
Now blending
Bag,
and the word.
Bag.
And one more word, B-I-N.
I,
Blend the sounds
Bin,
and say the word.
Bin.
Good job. Remember, as you're reading, to sound your words out, blend the letters together and then say the word. This is our last activity for today. We are going to listen to the short vowel sounds in each of these words, and then we are going to sort them into the short A sound and the short I sound. Here we go. My first word is fix. Ix. I hear that short I sound in the middle of fix. So I am going to move that word over here to the I box. My next word is hit. It. I hear that short I sound in the middle of hit. So I will drag that word to the I box. My next word is wag. W-ag. I hear a short A sound in the middle of wag, so I will drag that word to the A box. Sat. S-at. I hear an A sound in the middle of sat, so I will drag that word to the A box. The next word is six. Ix. I hear an I sound in the middle of six, so I will drag that to my I box. Him. Im. I hear a short I sound in the middle of him, so I will drag that to my I box. If. I hear a short I sound at the beginning of if, so I will drag that to my short I sound box. Can. An. I hear A in the middle of can, so I will drag that to my A box. Has. As. I hear A in the middle of that word, has, so I will drag that to my A box. Will. W-I-L. I hear I, short I, right in the middle of will, so I will drag that to my I box. Had. Add. I hear that A sound in the middle of had, so I drag that to my A box. Bad. B-ad. I hear A in the middle of bad, so that will go to my A box.
Great job!
That brings us to the end of Day 2 in our Wonders Week 1. Remember, how do friends depend on each other is our question for the week. And also remember that by the end of this unit, you will be able to use questions to show understanding of key details in a text. Be sure to find your teacher and find out what your next assignment is.